I've asked them to change the
유엔미래포럼 회장 제롬 글렌 한 30분 정도 이야기할 겁니다.
We get the PowerPoint cooking? Oh, it was sent a long time ago. All right, so there we go. While they're putting that together, for those of you who don't know, the Millennium Project is a global, decentralized, participatory think tank. We have 70 nodes around the world that connect local thinking with the global thinking. We have here Young-Suk Park, chair of the Korean node. We have a co-chair of the UK node, David Wood, right there in the middle. And Jose, who was up here just before, there he is. He's the chair of the Venezuela node, but he's sort of on a sabbatical to Spain at the moment. And also the head of our regional network of REGO, Latin American, Evo American. How are we doing? We getting the thing up there yet? I just gave you the presentation.
Is this it?
Oh, that? Okay, good. Now, all I need now is a clicker. Where's AGI when I need it? You know? Is there a clicker that somebody had?
I think wandered away, but you can let them know when we don't play.
No. I want to click. It's a different deal. Here, clicker. See, this is why we really need AGI. You know, it's those humans.
Yeah.
You gotta do something about those kind of species. No clicker. Only one clicker? No clicker? Here, clicker. No clicker. You know? Up on the stage? Gracias. Thank you. Okay, now the question, this is going to work. Yes, it is. Okay. Very quickly, the Millennium Project acts like a trans institution in the sense that it's not just acting like a corporation or just an NGO or just a business. We established in 1996 with UN organizations, governments, NGOs, foundations, corporations, and universities, which means that we get acted on by these institutional categories and can act through those institutional categories, which gives us quite a flexibility. We've got about nodes that evolved over the years, started off with just 4, now there's over 70. That is just simply says we've done a lot of research on all kinds of topics. One of the things we try to do is we have 15 global challenges, which is sort of like the human body system, how you understand the human body is one integrated system. We have 15 global challenges, and we use those to understand global change. Now, as we do that and upgrade them, we say, what's missing? And one of the things that we found was missing was the concept of anticipatory governance. You know, we put the rules after the fact, you know. We don't anticipate to get ahead and figure out what the rules should be ahead of time, like with AGI. So we said we're going to do that, but we want to look at the idea of work and technology. Jose just mentioned the idea about the Work Technology Report 2050. By the way, I would recommend you go to our website and take a look at that report. It's not bad, because when people talk about how the work AGI is going to work out, we went a lot of detail on that with 9 different countries pulling it together. The 3 scenarios are not bad. Anyway, so then that led to the idea of saying, well, what about AGI governance? To use that as an application. How do we think ahead of the game rather than after the fact? And we got a bunch of stuff and some more stuff. And those are the scenarios. One of the things that we're trying to develop also is we understand in business and in diplomacy competitive advantage, competitive intelligence, competitive strategy. We have not developed synergetic intelligence, synergetic strategy. We have a regional group in South Asia called the South Asia Foresight Network. It's got 8 countries, and they're now doing a synergy matrix. What's the synergetic relationship potential between India and Pakistan, between India and the Maldives, between India and Sri Lanka and so forth? And they're all working together now, our representatives, on how to create a synergetic analysis of the region. We'll see how that works. Okay, you all know about the three AIs, don't need to explain that. The analogy I use, which works well in communication, is that we have narrow purpose systems, but then we have a general purpose brain. I recommend you use that. It communicates well around the world. You understand that, you know what? You got a different PowerPoint up here. It's the one that says Panama 2024. I gave this talk yesterday. Anyway, my. It should start off by saying something about AGI, 3 studies. Take a look at the most recent ones. Come on, demonstrations, come on, man. Can you see what's on there? Tell me the name.
유엔미래포럼 회장 지금 발표 중입니다.
Yeah. No offense against China, but we talked about them yesterday. Well, that looks nice. It's not mine. You want me to find it for you? Yeah, that's AGI. Yes, February AGI panel. That's it. Yeah, yay! How about that? That looks good. Okay. Now, the study we're talking about has 3 phases. We finished the first phase. The first phase was to figure out 22 questions that were important about the future of AGI, especially relative to regulation or governance. The 22 questions by themselves, I think, is useful for all of you to ask yourself. You ought to know what you think about all those 22 questions yourself. And then you can compare yourself with the 55 hotshot leaders. We did half of them were interviewed, like Jose interviewed Ben, David interviewed Telem. We had many different interviews around the world. And those that we couldn't interview, we just got their stuff on the record on those questions. So it's a very good 60-page overview of the idea was to get it all on the table before we went further. What are all the different views of the experts? Because if you're going to regulate something, you got to know what the something is. And the average person doesn't know what the something is. We didn't ask them that. Although the second one, we did. We went to a larger panel of several hundred people, international lawyers, philosophers, as well as AGI experts, and we asked them a bunch of questions. One half of it had to deal with 40 potential regulations. Not that they're good, but the idea of get the conversation beyond the nice platitudes. The stuff that was mentioned earlier today about the White House's statement, nice. Other UNESCO's, nice. They're all nice. We had this good progress to get together on the basic principles and norms and values. But then the next question is, okay, how are you going to enforce that? How are you going to do it? Let's go from what to how. So we're trying to force the global conversation to address how you do these things. And then we're going to argue about how. What makes sense, what doesn't make sense. But we got to move in that conversation very fast. Because as we all know, AGI may be coming a little faster than we thought before. And then what we'll do is take all that information and create alternative scenarios like we did with the work technology thing to sort of expose our ignorance. Okay, this is very interesting. This is one of my complaints at the same time. The UN Security Council had a meeting in July 2023. And it really didn't talk, with the exception of China, I must admit. They basically were talking about narrow intelligence. You know, if you go back to the tape, you can get it at UN TV. You know, they're really talking about current events. They're not talking about getting ahead of the game and figuring out what to do. And this is something I think we got to stress more and more. Says Yes, what you just said is very good, but that's not artificial general intelligence. That's narrow intelligence. Russia said in that session, we will not support any supranational organization for artificial intelligence because, quote, the US and the West would run it. Russia didn't want that. So they're going to oppose everything in the Security Council. Therefore, the Security Council is not an actor in this game. Because Russia will vote, can't get anything done. So the actor in the game for the UN part will be the General Assembly. The next step in this dance was in Uruguay, Venezuela. 70 countries represented as parliamentaries came together to talk about how they can future-orient their parliamentary process, and the case in point was artificial general intelligence, and they agreed to start writing drafts and sharing them with some of the other countries. Now, if anybody's interested, I can get you the names of the people in your country that came. Not all countries came, 70 came. And so what you can do is you can contact your parliamentarian and say, hey, you went to this conference in Venezuela. You said you were going to, not Venezuela, sorry, Uruguay. Jose's on my mind here. You went to this conference. What are you doing? Have you written some drafts yet? And if they say no, maybe you should offer. You should offer. You know, if we're going to have rules about medicine, it's normal to talk to some doctors. You know, so I hope that all of you will get involved in your countries to begin a draft. And of course, tell them, you don't have to be perfect. This is just, because this is really the most complex management problem we've ever had. So start writing now and share with your neighbors. You can quiet, classify, whatever. But we got to start writing now, as fast as possible. Then we had, go back. Then, of course, as mentioned, we had the Blatchley Agreement. Very nice, good cooperative, nice platitudes, but again, narrow intelligence, not general. Then there's another meeting between the United States and China, made some progress, but again, the stuff, if you listen to the press releases and stuff coming out of it, again, it was more narrow intelligence, not general intelligence. We've got to move the conversation to general. Now, there's some good news over here. Before the meeting of the UN Security Council, there, according to Financial Times, or the only source on this, that there was a meeting of the secret meeting between the United States and China on AI collaboration. And that was before the UN General Assembly, before the UN Security Council. And it was interesting because that's why I said before, the Chinese input to the Security Council meeting was not bad, and it seemed to be informed. I'm not saying the US did such a good job on it, though. There seems to be a disconnect between the experts in that secret meeting and the State Department. I don't know. Don't tell anybody I said that. Okay. In the second phase, the questionnaire, we looked at 40 regulations and 5 governance models. All of this is up for grabs, to be torn apart, straw man, rethink it through. So the first one was rated the highest. What that means is that of all of the participants, 51% said this was very important or important. A multi-stakeholder body. I want to tell you, absolutely all the comments included the idea this can't be regulated by governments alone. It was clear that it's got to be businesses as well as the academics and the research labs and universities and so forth. It's sort of a done deal that it's got to go in that direction. The Secretary General, during that Security Council meeting I mentioned, also he accepted an agency and it would be multi-stakeholder. So that's some progress. All right, so multi-stakeholder or a trans institution in partnership with a system of artificial narrow intelligences a system of, in other words, you're going to have a bunch of different narrow intelligences doing part of that management function. Each narrow intelligence to implement specific functions, requirements listed in the other 40 beyond that, continually feeding back to humans in a multi-stakeholder body, national AGI governance agencies. That was rated the highest. The second was a multi-agency model for a UN AGI agency as the main organization, but with some governance functions run by the ITU, WTO, and UNDP. And Ben came in third. Here's the one that Ben had, which was the centralized emergence of AGI that no one owns, like no one owns the internet, and developed, like, for example, Singularity Net. That got 45%. The next one was by, Eliezer, the guy that sort of threw up his hands and says, I'm out of here. I don't see how this is going to get done. He has an interesting proposal. His says, put all the most powerful AI training chips and AI inference chips into a limited number of computing centers under international supervision with a treaty granting, and symmetric to how much they're involved in the process and the money, I guess, access rights to all countries party to the treaty. That got 42. So Ben beat Eliezer by three percentage points there. The last one, which can't beat with the chairs, is create two divisions in a UN agency. One for artificial narrow intelligence, including frontier models, and a second one just specifically for AGI. So the idea is that this is going around to all of our nodes around the world, and they get to put it in different languages and hopefully discuss with their governments and so forth. So hopefully this moves the conversation a little bit further along. I'm not going to read all 40 of them, even examples, but the idea here is you have a licensing system in a nation state, and the nation state licensing can be sort of different from one country to another, but there will be some common standards put together by much of what's already been discussed by the UN oversight. So you'd have the nation state license the AGI, and then you'd have the licensing procedure certified by a UN agency. So it's not just like, I give it to you because you're my cousin. And that it would have to be audited ahead of the license and have proof, maybe through some simulation, where you're proving that the AGI is aligned with the values that the people have talked about. And that there would be a narrow intelligence in the AGI that would monitor if the AGI goes off track. Because how do you diagnose it goes off track? That's a narrow intelligence function, not an AGI function. And then when it does, it pauses it. What nice feedback we got from somebody. By the way, when all these things are rated, people also made comments. So there's tons of comments about each one of these. It's very rich. The idea would be that one of the feedback says that you can't just have an off switch to stop it. Because what happens if you got robot surgery and somehow an interpretation or a mistake cuts it off in the middle of surgery? You don't want to do that. So maybe have a pause with human intervention. Anyway, the idea is we got to be thinking about rules for the developers, rules for governments, rules for the UN, and rules for users. So as you do conversations about these things, talk with your governments and so forth. I hope that you'll make four distinctions, because the rule for a developer is not the same thing as a rule for the user. So what we need now is a UN convention on AI. For the international lawyers in the audience, sometimes we create a convention first, which is sort of the rules of the game. Which a lot of that is redundant, because all those things that you heard about before with the UNESCO stuff, the OECD stuff, a lot of this has been done. But we want to specifically earmark the AGI additional stuff in a convention. So, but I've given up on the idea of getting people to understand the distinctions, because they keep lopsing back. When people talk about generative AI now, that abbreviates Gen AI, so people think it's general AI. No, it's not. Anyway, so easy way to do it is to say, we'll have a UN convention on AI, but 2 sections. And that's maybe the easiest way to do it. This can be introduced by any country or a group of countries in the UN General Assembly. Right now, I'm actively engaged in conversations where it would be a joint resolution between China and the United States. I know there's a lot of controversy about that, but I think it will give hope to the world that if China and the United States can begin to collaborate on one of the most complex issues we've ever faced in civilization, I think it would be a good sign. And so I'm out there with my little meat axe trying to get that direction going, and there's reason to think it might be possible. We'll see. And there's a bunch of references. The PowerPoint will be available, hopefully. Hopefully it'll be available. And that's all I got to say. Thank you.